Welcome to the channel, everyone. So I got my 1980 Chevy Silverado frame painted. Got my lift springs on there. So now I'm gonna get my axles underneath this thing. So I got my rear axle right here. This is the first one I'm gonna work on here. This is a, they call it a GM 12 bolt rear end. I've got to clean it up first. It's got a little bit of grease up here, a little bit of grease right there. Got to degrease it, then I'm going to wire wheel it. We'll get it wire wheeled, and then hopefully we'll get some paint on this thing. I'm not worried about the drum brakes on this thing because you're going to see I got an upgrade for that later on. But got the front axle right there, but that's going to be another video, guys. Somebody cross-threaded a lug nut, and now I get to replace a stud. Drum stuck to the axle. Okay, so got the drum off. Wasn't that bad. Just got my little torch, some blaster, heated around the hub there. Had to do it a couple times, spray it down with the blaster, and she finally broke loose. It wasn't bad at all compared to Wisconsin stuff. This was very simple to get off. Brakes don't look that bad. They were probably doing an okay job, but we can do a lot better now. Okay, this is the kit I'm going with for the rear disc brakes. This is from Right Stuff Detailing, I guess. It comes with rotors. Them are standard rotors. They're not slotted or drilled or anything, just standard rotors. Got right and left calipers. I believe them are from they say from a 79 Cadillac Eldorado or something like that. It's got an integrated parking brake. They come loaded with pads. You got the brackets to mount the calipers, mounting hardware, spacers to get your caliper centered on your rotor. You got backing plates, rubber hoses. You got your parking brake cables, so you can install them into your system. Little tabs for the rubber lines that need to be welded on the axle. And that's pretty much it. They call this the Street Series. It's probably one of the most affordable kits that I found. This is for GM 10-12 bolt truck only, it says. This is the 6 bolt, 6 by 5.5. So all their calculators say this kit's gonna fit this truck. So we'll find out, I guess. Okay, so we're gonna pop this diff cover off. I'm gonna drain the fluid out of it. Look at the gears. We're supposed to have a factory posi in here. Hopefully the gears ain't all worn to crap, broken or anything. We also got to get in here. We got to pull the C-clips because to do the disc brake conversion, I got to pull the plates off, the backing plates for the drum brakes. So we can't have them on. So we got to get this off. This right here actually looks like an extension for some sort of a lift kit. But as far as I could tell, the leaf springs were seized on there. They looked factory, so I don't know what that's about. That bolt there is destroyed. Know what they did to it. This cover was leaking a little bit when I got the truck. Fluid looks pretty cruddy, like every old truck I've ever. Well, the gear was hitting. I don't know if you can see that or not, but the gear was actually hitting the smashed. This thing was smashed. And the gear was actually hitting that. I wonder if that was making a noise. Supposedly it was driving down the road. I think it was at a junkyard. I think they tried to pick it up several times, several different ways. I think the forklift, I mean, they had a huge loader forklift. I think they did that damage. It is a locker. I don't know if you can see that on camera. It is a factory locking differential. The gears look pretty good. I'm going to get these numbers off the gears. I don't see anything horrible except for I believe I hear a little bit of sloppiness there. Little bit of metal on the bottom here. Nothing huge, but there's still a little bit of metal down there. Okay, so I'm going to take this bolt out right here to be able to get this shaft out so I can get the C-clips off the axles. Sometimes that bolt goes easy and sometimes that bolt goes hard. This one was easy. Just a bolt like this goes all the way through this shaft. Oh. This shaft normally comes out of here pretty easy, but I'm getting resistance for some reason. It's a little bit chewed up, which has got me concerned. I think we'll leave it like that because that's all I need to be able to get my C-clips out. I don't need it out all the way. Okay, so you want to push the axle in just slightly, enough to get the C-clip out. Okay, so on this posi axle, this C-clip has to be in right and the perfect position for it to come out, unlike a non-posi axle. You gotta have that C-clip in the right spot to get it to come out. I have yet to find that spot. You gotta find just the right spot to get this thing to come out. I mean just the right spot. I struggled to get that to come out, but there's your C-clip. Then once your C-clip is out, you can just pull your axle out. Careful of your seal if you're going to keep it. Your seal right there, I'm going to replace mine. Okay, so next I'm going to pull these drum brake backing plates off. Just 4 bolts, hold them on. Okay, so I'm gonna pull the seals out at the end of the axle. You can see it's been painted black here. I just cleaned this up because I'm not going to be able to mess with the inside of this once I start putting my disc brake stuff in. So I just cleaned that up, wire wheeled it, painted it. Now I'm going to pull the seal out. I got a tool, seal pulling tool here. You just stick it on here. Make sure you don't gouge your edge of your these usually come out pretty easily. I got a new, these are national seals, I believe. I got some brand new Timken seals. I'm just going to kind of clean this out right here. We'll get the new one in. Okay, so I like to clean it up in here. I actually like to go kind of back in the axle tube and clean that up close to the bearing. There's junk in there. That's one reason when you slide this axle in, you don't want to slide it in the bottom of the tube because there is usually junk there. Then I take a little, I got this Lucas assembly lube, and I like to put this on the bearings. So they are not dry at startup. And that just gives them a little bit of lube before the lube from the differential gets back to them. Got my new seal here. Got my seal driver tool. It's the right seal because I looked at the number off the old one just to compare. And we're going to send her home here. Feels nice and even all the way around. Also, before I slide the axle in, I like to put some of that assembly lube on the lip of the seal just to help it so it don't start out dry too. Okay, so you're going to want to inspect your axles when you pull them out just to make sure they're in good condition. You want to look at your splines, make sure they're all looking good, make sure they're not, the axle ain't twisted. You'll see if it's twisted if the splines don't kind of match up at some point right there. But everything looks good here. You want to look at where your bearings are riding. You can see on this one, there's probably quite a few miles on this axle. There's no chunks of metal out, or I don't feel anything worn really bad. So these are going back in. At some point I might rebuild this axle or this whole differential and get new axles or whatever, but right now just gonna clean this up and we'll get this back in. Before I can put it back in, the disc brake upgrade doesn't talk about this, but I'm gonna install longer wheel studs. Plus I got some wheels I got to show you guys that I think are going to require longer studs. So that's what I'm going to do next. I got to get these studs out and I'll show you how I install the new ones. So here's a look at the studs. These longer ones are the new ones I'm using. Now the knurl on these ones are a little bigger by like 3/1000ths, but they are going in. They're going in pretty easily. This is one of the ones that was damaged. Someone cross-threaded it. So I was going to have to replace a few studs anyway. But this is 1.5 inches, which is factory. This is 1 3/4 inches. Should give me what I need. Now there's probably a better way to do this, but this way works. Okay, so the way I'm installing these studs is I'm using a ball joint press, and I'm just putting them on there. Like that. Seems to be working all right. Use a little, I'm using an air 3/8. And like I said, it seems to be working out all right. And I got my vise. I got my axle not far enough. Okay, so even after I press them in, I think that did a good job. I give them all a good little love tap here, just to make sure they're all square and seated good. Okay, so that's it. longer studs. These are 7/16 studs for this 80 Chevy Silverado. So I'm going to give this axle a little bath. Same with the other one. I already got the other one done. Give them a bath. I got to get my backing plate for the disc brake setup installed on the axle first. Then I can slide these axles in, reinstall the C-clip, and I can actually seal the rear end back up. I won't have to go into it to install the rest of the braking system. Okay, so my first issue, hopefully the last issue, this kit, the hole for this backing plate wasn't big enough to slide onto the axle. You can see there's a little flange right here. It would not go over that flange, so I had to actually, I took an air nibbler. You can see it's not perfect. I took an air nibbler and enlarged the hole so it would go over that flange and sit flat against the axle. So yeah, hopefully this is the last issue. Not real happy with this flange on the back side. It doesn't really mate up very well with the backing plate there, but when I crush it together, hopefully it'll crush and not deform the plate. But you got to install this before I can install my axles, because this won't go on once the axle's installed. Okay, so now I got the shield fitting the axle. Install the bolts that they supply with the kit, using the 1/4 inch spacer. That's what they suggest you start with. Then you got the caliper bracket. Gonna slide the axle back into the tube. Trying to be easy on my new seal. Now I can put the C-clip back in, but I'm just doing mock-up here for these brakes. A rotor goes on next. Use a couple lug nuts to hold it in place. Okay, the caliper goes on next. So you tighten up the calipers. Okay, so once the calipers are on and tight, you want to make sure the caliper is centered over the rotor. And I did the other side already, so I know that 1/4 inch is the right spacer for my axle. So the 1/4 inch spacer is going to stay on there. I can't do anything with the parking brake. I can't, you need to adjust that before you bleed these brakes, these calipers. You got to adjust the parking brake first. So I'm not ready to bleed the brakes anyway. I got to get this axle in the truck. I got to get my cab back on before I can have a parking brake. So that adjustment will come later. Okay, so the final thing I'm doing is I installed the rubber hose onto the caliper. I just finger tightened it. And I got to figure out where I'm going to weld the tab that holds the rubber hose to the axle. So I'm going to figure out where I need this to be. You got to leave a little slack in this hose because this caliper moves. It don't move a whole lot, but you just need a little bit of slack. Make sure you take it into account, U-bolts, brackets, and everything else. But I'm going to figure out where mine goes. I'm going to mark it. Then I can weld it on there. I'll get this axle cleaned up, painted, and the next time you see it, it'll be ready to go in the truck. So I got the diff painted, and I just got my cover installed. Now I had this cover, I got it for the 70, and I was gonna sandblast it. It was black with the polished fins. It didn't work out. I got this one for the front axle of this truck, and you can see it's kind of got like a textured finish. So what I ended up doing was I took some bed liner and I sprayed it on here, took some paint thinner, wiped the fins off, and they pretty much looked the same. So basically used the cover that I already had for the rear, which was awesome. I did have an issue. This bolt, it was missing this bolt, and I thought they just didn't install the bolt, and a mud bee went in there and put mud in it. But as I dug it out to install my cover, it was a broke off bolt. There's a broken bolt in there. Tried to drill it out to re-tap it, and basically the drill grabbed what was left of the bolt eventually and ripped it out. So yeah, there was no re-tapping that to the smaller size, so I ended up drilling it out. I believe that's 3/8, tapped it out to 3/8. No big deal. The gasket, it was that big. I didn't have to modify anything. I'm gonna run my the brake hose and the brake block to this bigger bolt. So yeah, no big deal. Everything worked out fine there. My gasket, I used a lube locker. Love these gaskets. Again, this is a GM 12 bolt. You don't have to use any silicone or nothing for them gaskets. You just bolt your cover on, torque it down. I believe the book says 10 to 20 foot-pounds for the bolts there. Got my brake deals where the hose, the rubber hose goes to those. I got them welded on. Now them welded really funny. It's almost like I don't know what kind of metal they used for those, but it didn't like to be welded. So, but I got them welded on there. So anyway, I'm gonna get my brakes back installed and bolted down for the final time, and we'll get a final look at the axle here before I end the video. So there it is, guys, all ready to go back onto the frame. Okay, so had a few issues with the hardware they sent with these disc brakes. You can see the only thing I used was the washers. They have these lock nuts, and I tried to install them, and I even got a 1/2-inch wrench. Well, here it is right here. I even got a 1/2-inch wrench and tried to turn those lock nuts onto the nuts, and it was so hard. I don't know. I don't even know how you get them on there, because I mean they were turning so hard. So I had some stainless bolts, the exact same size, so I just used them. Then I had some regular nylon lock nuts, and I just used them, guys. I don't know. I mean, I understand why they want something that's gonna lock really good, because there's probably gonna be a lot of vibration, you know, with the braking system. So they don't want that to come loose. But if you can't install the hardware, it does you no good whatsoever. Second thing that I didn't like was these clips that hold the brake line. They're not very tight, and I had to go in and modify them. I had to grind them a little bit because it wouldn't go around the hose. So I actually tried to use some other ones that I had, and they wouldn't work. So I think it's not the clip that's the problem. It's actually the hose that's the problem. So anyway, I had to grind a little bit off that just to get them to go on. But you can see I got them both on, and I think they'll stay there. Once I get a hard line on, I think they'll stay there. I do have to install a hard line from here to the block, the rubber hose that goes up. And actually, now that I think about it, I think I have an extra. I ordered 2 for some reason for the 70, and I think it's the exact same thing. I'll have to get it out and see, but I might be able to save myself some money. The thing I don't know about that is, will it work with my 2.5-inch lift? I guess I can make an extension to bring that block up higher. If I need to, I guess that would probably be the cheaper way, because if I already have a hose. We'll see, guys. But like I said, it's, oh, one more thing. I was worried about these dust shields deforming as I tighten the bolts up. I was worried about them deforming because they didn't quite fit the contour of this axle very good. But they did bend a little bit, but all I had to do was grab them and straighten them out. They're very thin, very easy to move. So that worked out just fine. But they did distort, but I got them back in position. So that's it, guys. Like I said, it's ready to go back in. Problem is I can't install it without the front axle, because then it's so heavy in the rear it won't stay on the lift. So I got to get to working on the front axle. Hopefully I'll have that video next week. But yeah, a lot of work here, guys, but it's nice when something turns out this nice. It's worth the work. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this one. I'll see you.